Okay, so this is our next episode of True Wrestling Fans Discussions, but we're going to be reviewing the second part of the Brian Pillman story on Dark Side of the Ring. I'm your host, Mike.
I'm Frank. Let's get right into it. What'd you
Okay,
think, man?
okay, excellent episode. Really, really, really sad, but and we'll get into everything. But
Yes.
really, really good episode. They started off right where we left off in part one, where it was with Pillman when he flipped the SUV, and they had a he was evac'd out of there, right? They held
Yeah, they airlifted him to the
they airlifted him out
hospital.
of there. Yeah.
Oh my God, was he? I mean, he first guy I thought of when I saw this was like the whole Brutus Beefcake with the plate in the
Yeah.
face because they
Yeah,
were
they
talking about how they had to pull back his
oh
face to
it's
put the plate in. They had to pick his ankle up to put it on
yeah.
the table.
They put those big
And
screws into his
oh
ankle.
my God, he looked like Frankenstein with the leg
Yeah.
when they showed it. Oh my God, that was just intense.
Yeah, then they had his sister went to the hospital. She got there and she saw him. The wife didn't even recognize him at first.
No, she's like, yeah, that's not my husband.
Right. She said that his hair was just red from
Red,
the
yeah,
from all
from
the
all the blood.
blood and
Yeah,
everything. His foot was his ankle was shattered. They had to like
and he passed out at the wheel. They said he took his medicine, and they asked him what he was on, and she said just muscle relaxers, and
muscle relaxers. I
he
mean
took
it's
them, and they worked too soon, and he flipped it, and he said they interviewed. He said I got flipped out of the Humvee,
yeah.
and I was 50 feet away from the vehicle. And the one thing they showed, and I was hoping, the whole week since I saw part one was remember they showed you the baby seat.
Yeah.
And the whole time I'm hoping, dear God, please tell me one of those kids wasn't in the car this whole time because I never really knew about that accident back
Oh,
then.
but
Because
I knew Brian was in it because Brian's alive today, so there's no way he would have been able to survive that.
yeah, no, not Brian,
So
but
so
like
I knew.
maybe hopefully not one of the other ones.
Oh, but they
Because
had mentioned you probably didn't catch it. They mentioned that was baby Brian's seat was
oh,
ejected. Yeah,
okay, yeah, I missed that. Thank
yeah,
God.
yeah. So
But yeah, they and that what's funny is that whole time they thought that there were two rumors that came out of that. One of them was that they thought this was a shoot
right,
because he was a loose
it was
cannon.
a work. Well, yeah, it was actually
Yeah,
it was a
that
work.
he
Yeah,
was working this as an angle because
hmm
he at the time he's negotiating with WWE.
yeah,
And the other thing was, and I thought this was ludicrous, and even he did when they asked him about it, was that he was having plastic surgery to become the evil Shawn
he was Shawn
Michaels.
Michaels.
I actually had to pause it and stop. I was laughing so hard. I was like, "Are you kidding me?
It
Like, what
shows you
is
how
this?"
ridiculous the wrestling industry is in terms of rumors and
But the fact that they think he's this crazy enough to go that far, that this rumor gets concocted, is ridiculous.
yeah, no, it's crazy. So eventually, he gets offered a contract by WCW and by WWF at the
Yeah,
time. And I think WCW was gonna pay him more money,
money.
but
Yeah,
they had some sort of an out in the contract. I think that's what they mentioned. Like they could renegotiate after 3 months or something like that. And he knew that he was in bad shape. So if he put himself in that position and he's not healthy, they can, cut his pay or whatever, release him, whatever the case was. So he signed the guaranteed for
yeah, the 3 year deal. Yeah.
a little bit less, but it was a guaranteed contract.
And it's funny because, remember back in that day, Vince didn't offer the guarantee contract. And I just thought when they used that word, I was like, wait a minute, because I'm thinking back to the Hall and Nash thing.
But this is
He
after
didn't
Hall
offer
and
the guarantee.
but that's after Hall and Nash left. So obviously he learned his lesson because this is towards the end of '96.
Yeah,
So that's he learned his lesson, and that's
too late though.
you know. But so then he signs that contract, but then they said that how he would be still like on an IV, and he'd
Yeah,
unhook
he,
himself to go to
hmm
TV and do the TV tapings,
yeah, he was
and
in
then real
bad shape, and and Vince didn't realize, I guess, how bad of a shape he was in.
he kept it to himself. He
Yeah,
knew it.
especially when he needed that extra surgery on his ankle, so they had to come up with a storyline
Hmm.
to get him off TV, and and Cornette called it he was Pillmanized, the body part.
Yeah,
To and he said, and I didn't think he was going to tell. He goes, "There's a secret when you put that chair, on the ankle, not to hurt the body part. It's a secret, but I'm not
right.
going to tell you.
He doesn't want to give it
We
away now.
we all know what it is.
Yeah.
So and so that was the way of getting him to get that get that extra surgery, and from there, that's when they we'll talk about this when we get to Austin's episode later on. The Pillman got a gun segment on Monday Night Raw, which was well ahead of its time at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, so then they do the whole Pillman they do the Pillman's got a gun thing, which was crazy, but it was a way to, keep him from wrestling in the ring, keep him out longer
Yeah,
when he got stomped out. And Austin told a great story how he really laid into him, but obviously he didn't really hurt his ankle,
no.
but that he was hitting with some stiff shots, and he was taking a
Yeah,
little bit
because he
too
said
brutal.
that if he didn't, then they wouldn't believe it coming from Steve Austin's character, who was
Right.
ruthless, a tough SOB, stomp a mud hole in him, walk him dry. He said he had to do it that way,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
it was a good segment. The whole Pillman gun thing, a lot of people didn't like it at the time, but again, it was this was where wrestling was turning into the Attitude Era in 1997. So this was another stepping stone towards that. And I mean, I don't know about you, but that whole segment, I got a kick out of Austin beating the crap out of his friends,
Mm-hmm.
throwing them into the kiddie pool. These are 350-pound guys. What was it, three of them? And Austin's whooping the crap out of all of them, throwing them into kiddie pools. He busts down the window. Pillman's over there with his 9 millimeter, and then they just cut out the feed, and they were like,
Yeah.
we heard a shot. We heard a shot." And yeah,
Pillman's got
I
a gun.
remember Dave Meltzer saying that he didn't like it at all because of the whole gun thing.
Mm-hmm.
I can see where he's coming from with that in that aspect, but overall, I thought it was a great shoot that they did with the two of them.
No, it was good. It was something different. I mean, maybe I guess for the time, but this is so long ago that back in that era, this wasn't something that did the
Yeah, it was
common.
unheard of.
It was kind of unheard of. So back then it was controversial, and the people were upset. I guess at USA Network, Vince apologized. Strangely enough,
Yeah,
this is like one of the only times he actually apologized for any sort of storyline.
yeah.
Which was very different.
I remember that. That was the next week on Raw. He was standing there. They had the tape thing with him and Michael Hayes, Doc
Hmm.
Hendricks, whatever. And and I was like, oh, that's a first.
Yeah. So what ends up happening is so then Pillman is doing commentary because
Mhm.
he's messed up, but he really wasn't happy doing the commentary, but he needed to do it in the meantime to keep him working and while his leg ankle would heal, but eventually he does get back in the ring and he's just not the same because he can't really move. He can't move as well, and this guy was a high flyer, very athletic, and
Yeah,
he's
you
wrestling.
you could tell in his matches with Mankind and Goldust through
Yeah.
1997, it just wasn't there, and he would take bumps in other parts of his body to just kind of counter the
Hmm.
pain that he was in. And it was that ankle. He came back too fast. I really think he needed another maybe 6 to 8 months rehab.
They mentioned that he pushed it to come back
Yeah,
too fast. But then at the end of the day, man, he might have never been 100% ever again. So who
no,
knows?
no, he
'Cause
would
the
have never been
doctors,
flying Brian again.
no, he was never gonna get back to that. But he was taking a lot of painkillers. He was working through the pain. He was telling everybody that he was okay, but he really wasn't. He really wasn't okay. You
Yeah,
know.
his sister would say that he would take a pain pill, and if it didn't go away, he'd take another one. He'd keep taking them
Yeah.
until the pain went away. That's not good.
Yeah. They mentioned that he had difficulty walking even in the airport. They could notice that,
Hmm.
but he was, Austin says he was such a man's man that it's not like he wanted any help, and he didn't want to be disrespectful to him by, asking him, hey, can you
He was a
do it?
proud man.
Yeah. So they get into all of that, and then he starts telling his wife, his ex-wife, and I shouldn't say ex-wife, his widow, because they never got divorced.
Yeah,
His widow starts talking about how she was saying that he would tell her things like, if I'm not around, if you're not happy
yeah.
here, move back down to Atlanta, go to Georgia, and if anything, find somebody else.
Find somebody for the
So
kids.
the
Yeah,
kids have a father. She was like, why are you talking like this? But he probably sensed that, you know.
yeah. I think he kind of figured the end was near, and he was spooking her with all of that, and it was just the direction his life was going in. Yeah,
Yeah, they saw
you could see it coming.
yeah, the people they saw that something was going on with him with the pills and stuff. People started to pick
Mhm.
up on it. He went to Kevin Hood's house, which was his former trainer, who he was close with.
Mhm.
He was like, apparently he was pilled out of his mind, and he said that he
Oh
had
yeah,
some sort of a hole in his arm, I guess, and this guy said that it was probably from steroids. I think the word he used was what was the word he used? I forgot one of these steroids that he said that he must have injected himself, some sort of growth hormone or something like that, He was messed
Yeah, it was a
up, and
growth hormone
yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
when they drug test when Jim Ross had him drug tested and Pillman thought he betrayed him, all that he tested positive for was the prescription drugs that he was on plus the steroids,
Right, which everyone was on steroids
which
back then anyway. So
exactly. So yeah, and he told him my kids are upstairs. You got to go. You got 10 seconds to get the f out. And he said he left, and I mean Brian Pillman was just an absolute mess.
yeah, no, he was.
It,
Yeah, and then he apparently was really upset at JR because he knew JR for years and he felt like JR betrayed him. He said, "Oh, how could you do this to me?" Because JR was the one that put the call in to
yeah,
get him tested, but then JR tried to explain to him, "I'm trying to save your life. You got a problem here.
exactly.
This is completely out of control. I'm just trying to help you." But that fractured their relationship. It fractured the relationship with the trainer because the Woods, because he had thrown him out. He said, "My kids are upstairs. You can't show up here all messed up in the middle of the night like this." And then I guess I don't even think they spoke after that till his passing.
No.
Um, but then what ends up happening? What was he supposed to show up at? Bad Blood, right? Bad Blood '97 was the pay-per-view.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
were supposed to be there at 1 o'clock was the check-in time for the wrestlers. It was now going on 5 o'clock, and he was a no-show.
Mhm.
And so Cornette, Pritchard was off doing something, so Cornette had to make the phone call to the hotel in Minnesota, and they asked, "Hey, this is World Wrestling Federation. We're looking for one of our wrestlers, Brian Pillman. Can you tell me what time he checked out?" And he puts him on hold, and Cornette's getting aggravated, like, "Okay, you got to check your records." And that's when he gets back on the phone. He was like, "I'm sorry to tell you this, but Brian Pillman has died."
Yep.
And Cornette couldn't believe it. And he started tearing up doing this episode. And he said he told somebody to go get Pritchard, and they told him why. And it was just like they couldn't process it. They couldn't believe it. And I remember the next night on Raw, Vince McMahon had come out and announced that Brian Pillman was dead. And when I watched it, I was like, "You got to be kidding me!"
Yeah, it was terrible. And
Because they never mentioned on the pay per view that his match was scratched.
yeah,
They went through the whole card as if it was nothing, as if the match never even existed. And I honestly don't remember who he was supposed to face. I believe it was Goldust. I don't even know.
yeah, I remember.
But they just went through the card like it was nothing. They just eliminated the match from it, and then just came out on the next night on Raw and had announced to the world what happened.
Yeah, and Cornette had told Pritchard like he had Bruce Pritchard had to handle it because he was like Cornette was so shaken up he didn't even want to talk to
Yeah,
anybody. So Cornette is the one that gets on the phone with the guy at the hotel, and the cops were already there, and they found him. He was dead in his hotel room.
when they did the Widow interview segment, because Cornette had said, and I kind of agree with this, Vince should have just sent her $100,000 and been done with it instead of putting her on the air. And if you remember, she said, "Just don't ask me about pills and drugs and whatnot. I have no idea what the cause of death is. Please do not ask me." And what does he do? First question he asks, because she gives the remark on the face, is, "Was this pills, drug related, and whatnot?" And she goes, "That's just typical Vince." I really don't think he should have put her on the air. I thought that was bad.
No, he should have just read. He should have just had a statement written by her if she wanted to say something, and he should
Yeah,
just read the statement, and that should have been the end of it. To put her on the air like that, and then to ask her those questions when the autopsy hadn't even been performed, so there was no official cause of death at that point. To speculate what it was ultimately they said it was from heart disease.
yeah, which ran in the
So
family because his
yeah,
dad died at the age of 55.
yeah, but I mean, Pillman was only 35.
I know.
I'm sure whatever he was on, I'm sure it contributed to
Oh
his
yeah,
heart. But at the same time, like that's not the time nor the place to to do that. I was
it was
very in
bad
poor
taste.
taste.
Yeah,
Vince, that was a scumbag. That was a scumbag move on that. I don't.
I agree.
You can't do stuff like
I
that.
totally agree. You don't and you don't do that. I just again, Cornette should have just said you handle it, quietly.
Hmm.
You talk to her and whatnot. Don't put her on the air.
Yeah,
What are you doing?
yeah. I felt really bad for the daughter. She had already lost both parents. That's such a tragedy. Like because her mother had
Kimberly
committed
was yeah,
the mother had committed suicide already.
yeah, over the custody thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now her father's dead.
yeah, it was a
You
mess.
know. Then Pillman's widow just like spirals out of control. She starts getting into like heavy alcohol and stuff like that. Um, Terrible stuff. Just what happened with the family, with the kids, and then you know, it's listening to Brian Pillman Jr. speak was rough.
When she married the stepfather, he was just an absolute, part of my expression, an ass. The way he treated them, how he was abusive, He actually trained his dogs. If he grounded the kids, which if he grounded them was like what 3 to 6 months, he would say to them,
That's what he would say
three
to
to
them.
six
Yeah.
weeks.
Hmm.
He would have the dogs stay at the door to where they would bark at the kids or bite them or whatever the case is. I mean, this was just this was a scumbag. And the one thing that Brian Pillman Jr. had that he kind of comforted him at the time was his Nintendo GameCube because he was a video gamer, and the stepfather found out about that and he smashed it on him. I mean, now you're just taking everything away from these kids. I mean, this was just a dick move. I mean, this guy was really, and of course they couldn't get a hold of him for the show. How ironic.
Well, I mean, what's he gonna say?
No, there's no way he can defend his actions. And
Right.
now
The only thing
I mean, he's just
he could just deny it. So why even have him on the show? But
yeah, good luck with that.
yeah, that was really sad listening to him talk about how he didn't have anybody to take him out to play baseball or play in the park and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
man, but I mean, to his credit, he turns out to be he sounds very intelligent,
Yes.
and he looks like he's gonna do well for himself. He eventually gets into the business, and I think he signed to AEW, but he hasn't hit the main roster yet. I don't think, but I don't really follow AEW. I could be wrong on that.
He did a few dark matches, and a lot of people were saying that they were upset why he went there instead of WWE. And it's not that he has any animosity towards WWE at all. And I can watching this episode, I can understand why he went there, and I totally agree with him being there. It's because he has somebody that can mentor him and watch him, and that's Jim Ross. Jim Ross, since he's in AEW, who was very close with his father, can now keep an eye on his son as he progresses into his wrestling career. And now I totally agree why he's there. Will he be in WWE one day? I hope so, because the kid's got talent. I've seen a few of the MLW tapes that when he did his independence. He's really good considering he had just decided, hey, I'm going to go do this.
Right.
And the sister thought he was nuts. We're like, wait a minute, you're going to wrestle? You just play video games. What are you going to wrestle? He proved everybody wrong.
Yeah,
he's definitely he's got his father's ability.
Well, I mean, he looks just like him.
Yes.
That's the eerie thing. He looks just like him, but he never played.
Just as long as he doesn't come the loose cannon thing again. Just let's let him go there.
Yeah, but JR spoke about that. How he told him, "Don't be the loose cannon."
Just be yourself.
It was nice to see him that he kind of made amends with his mother, and and he has a good relationship with his aunt.
Oh yeah, she was the glue that kept the three of them together.
Yeah, that she watched over them and helped them out, and she got a house, and that was for them to stay at and everything. So that was cool that at least the aunt was a part of their life and was like a second mother to his daughter that had lost lost her mother and
her father.
Her father. And I thought that was a really cool part where he talked about how Stone Cold Steve Austin had one of his old weight belts or his dad's weight belt and called him up or reached out to him somehow and
he said at that moment it clicked. Hey, why don't I become a wrestler? Like it was a sign.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a tragic story. It was a great episode watching it. I thought the production is tremendous and all the interviews, all the people they interviewed. Tragic tale, tragic story, man. Because Pillman, man, he had it all.
He did it all. And in WCW, in WWE, he did what he could considering. But ultimately, he showed what he was truly made of in WCW as Flying Brian and in the Hollywood Blondes. And again, like they said, who knows, given 10 more years to his career leading to 2007, what he could have accomplished, in the wrestling ring had he been healthy.
Yeah, it's just one of the big what ifs. If he never crashes that SUV, who knows what happens? Because like Brian Pillman said, that was a junior. He said that was the beginning of the end.
Yeah, it was.
All right, guys. Let us know what you think about this episode of Dark Side. We're going to continue with Dark Side this season. We're going to review every episode, so look forward to that. Like, comment, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys soon.
Take care.